If you do that, the kids are going to stick. They're going to get excited. They're going to see careers. They've got personal touch. That's how you start solving these problems. It's not by throwing money at it. It's about getting people that care to engage.
Well, you mentioned earlier that you know, two of the big success points of any state or region is a high number of college graduates or higher education and fantastic places to live. And when you put those two criteria together and you find the top 10 regions in this country, obviously none of them are in Michigan, and Michigan's actually in Detroit area is pretty low on the scale. Grand Rapids is even lower. How do we get to that point where, I mean, how do we fix these cities? I mean, these core cities, we did all kinds of great work building up the auto industry. Twice that industry was turned upside down because of 2 world wars. Twice put back together again. We did lose our way, I think, starting in the 50s when the automakers started giving out pensions and other things to the unions to basically fight off strikes. But today, how do you really go at a city like Detroit or Flint and fix it?
Yeah, I like to describe it as a 10-year cycle of unsuccess. Because basically about every 5 years or so, there'd be very well-intentioned people that would gather a group of resources and make a run at reinventing either Detroit or Flint or a lot of these other cities. And they wouldn't have fully done everything they needed to do. And so what happens then, after 5 years, it would die off, and then people would just get apathetic for 5 years, nothing would happen, and then after those 5 years, we'd go through it again. I've been through this cycle at least 4 or 5 times in my lifetime. That's got to stop. I want to draw the line in the sand. So I approach it as Plan A, Plan B, from a governor's point of view. Plan A is my concern is we have well-intentioned people. I think Mayor Bing is a great opportunity. My concern is, does he have all the resources he needs to get the job done in terms of implementation? And so I think the state should step up to say, whatever we can do to help him succeed and that administration to succeed, we should do it. To the extent success doesn't happen, either there or any other place in the state, I actually want to call for legislation across the entire state to say for every jurisdiction, not just Detroit, not those places, but for every school district, every jurisdiction, let's raise the standards of accountability, ethics, transparency, and add performance. And if the jurisdiction doesn't cut it, we will go in and fix the problem and then give it back to the community. But this is the time to do the tough measures, to stand up and say, we have to break that cycle, it's got to get done. So hopefully Plan A works. If Plan A doesn't work, Plan B will work.
As a venture capitalist, and I know you kind of addressed this earlier, what sectors do you think would require the most investment in Michigan to be successful?
Again, I like to say I want to create the playing field. And that goes back to the point I mentioned about we need to figure out how to better leverage our educational institutions and our large companies, both sectors, to work better with entrepreneurs and innovators. Again, we don't dialogue well. Michigan tends to be a state of silos, where you create these silos in a lot of different dimensions, politically, geographically, racially. I mean, too often we draw these lines, and we're doing ourselves a huge disservice. One of the things I really want to fix in Michigan, which is harder than changing a tax law, is to reinvent our culture. Too often, for these issues, we have a win-lose culture, where people perceive they've won something because someone else has lost. That's wrong. In that environment, we all lose. So we need to get to a win-win environment. The funny story I like to say is the political people like to come to me then, or some of the people, they come up and say, you don't get it, you're a business guy. They say, you're a business guy, so you don't understand what it's like to work together with people, how hard this is. It's win-lose. And they say, you're a CEO type, so you just tell people what to do. I used to be nice when they said that. Now I often say, that's an incredibly ignorant statement. Because if you think about it, successful business people, in any context, the only way you win in a business is if your customers win, your employees win, your shareholders win, your suppliers win, and your community wins. That's a 5-way win. And that's the environment, the culture we need to get to in Michigan, is getting everyone to understand that, whether you're in business, you're an entrepreneur, you're in government, that win-win is the key to success.
A couple more questions. You know, Ronald Reagan once said that the 9 most horrifying words in the English language is, "I'm here from the government and I'm here to help." Well, this week we saw in Washington something that affected Michigan and other states is a curtailment or a cap on executive pay. What are the dangers there that you see in terms of, you know, the government trying to, you know, really regulate what is a free market economy?
Yeah, that's a dangerous concept. I mean, when you draw arbitrary lines like that, I mean, that just is an illustration, at least to me, that people didn't know what they're talking about or understand the issues. I mean, if you look at the financial institutions and some of that, there have clearly been cases where CEOs or other people have made too much money.
Sure.
And so we do need to be cognizant of that. That's where shareholders should be more indignant.
Right.
Because in many cases, I believe shareholders are not active enough in terms of standing up for some of the egregious pay that goes on in some of those situations. But then to say you're arbitrarily going to cut someone's pay by 90%, they didn't say whether it's because someone's been there for 20 years or it could be a brand new person coming in to save an organization. Mm-hmm. You're not going to retain talent. You're not going to get the talent you need to make success out of these organizations by bringing that attitude. And in fact, once you've said that, you could scare a lot of people about belonging anywhere in the organization. Because if they pick on those people first, who's to say it's not someone in any department
Sure.
that may be subject to something like that? So hopefully they'll get some feedback and learn quickly from that one.
Okay, great. And lastly, you know, we've seen, it started here under Governor Engler, but these incentives that are awarded to select companies that either move here or expand here. And it's almost become a popularity contest, and it really takes the focus away from what would be a good government model. And I guess if taxes were low and the government was proactive, would we really need these incentives?
You said it, RJ. I mean, basically, the incentives are out of control. It's basically a ridiculous setup where they're putting Band-Aids on a broken system instead of having guts enough to fix the system.
Right.
So the issue here is there should be very limited use of incentives. We should be phasing these down because we fixed the system and we're competitive. And that's the right economic model. And it, again, reinforces the issue that people in government today don't culturally understand what needs to be done and that they have a messed up system. So let's just go get it done.
Great. Any closing remarks, Rick?
Well, this is fabulous. I mean, I'm so proud to have the opportunity to share time with you, RJ, and to talk to this group because you are the early adopters. You do need to be in the forefront of reinventing Michigan. And what I like to tell people when I'm out on the campaign trail is I like to tell people you have 2 choices in this election. Not 5 or 6. There are a number of candidates running. But for both the primary and the general election, if you believe our political system works, if you believe our government works, there are a lot of successful career politicians. You should vote for one of those people. If you believe our system's broken, if our political system's broken, I'm the other choice, but it's not me, just me. It's got to be a bunch of us. It's got to be a lot of us. And a lot of us joining what I like to call the Reinvent Michigan team. And that's the kind of fire we need, is the fire of innovators and entrepreneurs. So that's how I'd like to close. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Rick.
Thank you, RJ and Rick Snyder. Now, if I could have your attention for just a few minutes, we're going to start our dinner service, but please don't come to the buffet table until you're invited by the captain, and we're going to follow up with Tie 20 shortly.